Hey, what's going on? This is Seth, and in this video I wanted to talk to you about an issue that I think a lot of real estate investors tend to overlook, and that issue has to do with understanding whether your property is located in or anywhere near a flood zone. And flooding is something that most people don't really think much about because it happens so infrequently, but even though it doesn't happen often, it's still extremely important to at least be aware of what the situation is. The reason that's important is because if it is located in a flood zone, it means that most lenders out there are going to require the owner to have flood insurance on that property. And depending on what type of flood zone you may be in, the cost of that insurance could be a lot, which could be a significant burden on whoever owns it, which could make it really hard for you to ever sell that property, even if you don't get flood insurance. It's something you got to know about because your future buyer may decide to walk away simply because the cost of flood insurance is so high. So that being said, I wanted to show you a little trick that I recently learned about, which has been really helpful to me. And it's a really cool way to find out whether your property is in a flood zone for free in like a matter of minutes. It's really quick and easy. So what I'm showing you right here, this is a neighborhood where I used to live. This is where I lived like right out of college. The interesting thing about this neighborhood was there was a river that ran through it, and you can kind of see the outline of it right here. Kind of went back to these woods and then over through this neighborhood. And I just remember, back in the days when my wife and I would be taking walks through here, like in the springtime when all the snow would melt. And this river would just man, the level would go so high. And I just remember thinking man, I wonder if that thing has ever just had a crazy flood and just spilt water all over the place. Of course, I never actually witnessed that when I lived there, but it just got me thinking I wonder if there's a flood zone around this and where that goes and if any of these houses are affected. And there's actually a couple of really quick and easy ways to verify that. And the first one I'm going to show you here is through the FEMA website. So this is like a government website where you can literally get access to any and every flood map everywhere in the United States. And all you have to do is type in the address of whatever property you're trying to research, and it will pull up the most relevant flood map. And I'll just show you really quick with an example from this particular neighborhood. You can kind of see the same outline right there. Should look somewhat familiar to this. And what you can do here, once you type in that address, is click on this to view the flood map. And you're going to see something like this. It's just kind of a tiny little thing. You have to zoom in and sort of eyeball it and figure out where the property is. But really what this is showing you is this is the flood zone from that river. So you can kind of see these lines here, and the actual river itself is a pretty narrow line, but these wider lines is what encompasses the actual flood zone. So let's just keep zooming in here. Okay, so now we're pretty close. This is Jefferson, and you can kind of follow it right here. And this part that I'm tracing right here is the same thing that you see right here. So that's the same street. You can kind of see the curve of the river that goes over here. If you go back, you can see that same curve. And as you can see, our property is right about there, and that is well within the flood zone. If you were looking to buy that property and get financing, chances are you don't even have a choice. That bank is going to force you to have flood insurance on that property because that property is their collateral. That's just something that's very important to be aware of. There's actually another site which I found to be a little bit easier to work with. It's called freeflood.com, and it looks like a fairly low budget website, but it's very useful, and I thought it was a lot more user friendly. All you have to do to create an account is just give them your email address and a password, and that's it. Once you're logged in, you just have to type in the address and search here, and then it will bring up these results. And what it's telling you here is that it's in an AE flood zone, and then it just sort of explains it here. There's also a flood map. I thought it was a little bit clearer than the ones shown here, just because it's color coded and everything, and it shows you a dot where the property is. It's kind of hard to mistake where it is relative to a flood zone. So really, that right there is very valuable information. And I think for the vast majority of people, chances are this is not going to be a problem. It's not going to be an issue. But if you live even remotely close to a body of water, even if that's a very small body of water, any of that stuff is fair game for potentially being in a flood zone, and you'll definitely want to check it out if that's what your property is located next to. And last but not least, if you should find out that your property actually is located in a flood zone, the next step would be to go to this website that you see right here called floodsmart.gov. And all you have to do is type in the address of your property into this little address box here. So I'm going to put this one in here just as an example. And once you've got that in, check whether it's residential and then go. And it's going to show you very quickly how much approximately the annual premium for that flood insurance is going to cost if you choose to get it, or if you have to get it. And as you can see here, I mean, it's not cheap, but it's not crazy for this particular property. Can be a lot more or a lot less depending on where your property is located. Also, just keep in mind, this is not necessarily an exact estimate. If you want to get the exact estimate, the next thing you'd probably want to do is call one of these agents in the area and just tell them where your property is, and they can give you a much more educated idea as for exactly how much it's going to cost if you do choose to pull the trigger and buy that flood insurance. Either way, it's just a good cost to be aware of regardless of the situation. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you found that little tutorial helpful. I thought those tools were all really cool just because they're free and they're very quick and easy to use. So if you have any question whatsoever about whether or not your property is located in or near a flood zone, don't wonder. Spend a few minutes, just check out these resources, search for yourself, and you'll find out for sure, and you can decide whether or not you need to put together an action plan for that. So that's all. Hopefully you found this video helpful. Thanks again for checking it out, and I hope to see you again soon.